In the Old Testament, there are women described as beautiful. The word beautiful is written as yafi in Hebrew, and it is specifically used to describe someone with exceptional physical appearance. For women, this might be considered an honor, but we do not know how the women themselves felt about it. Ultimately, it is the men who take action based on their beauty. This time, I would like to highlight the women who are described as beautiful and explore how much influence they had on history.
Abraham's wife Sarah was quite beautiful for her age.
At one time, there was a famine in the land of Negev. So Abram went down to Egypt to stay there for a while because the famine in the land was severe. As he approached Egypt and was about to enter, he said to his wife Sarai, "I know that you are a beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife,' and they will kill me but let you live. So please say that you are my sister. That way, because of you, they will treat me well, and my life will be spared thanks to you." When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that she was indeed very beautiful. Pharaoh's officials saw her and praised her to Pharaoh. And she was taken into Pharaoh's palace. Because of her, Pharaoh treated Abram well. And Abram acquired sheep, cattle, donkeys, male and female servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his household with severe plagues because of Abram's wife Sarai. So Pharaoh summoned Abram and said, "What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she was your sister? I took her to be my wife. Now, here is your wife. Take her and go."
Although the Bible does not specify Sarah's age at this time, she later appears in the Bible when she is nearly 90 years old. It is estimated that the event in Egypt occurred when Sarah was between 70 and her late 80s. Nevertheless, she was still beautiful enough for her husband Abraham to be concerned.
Isaac, the son of Abraham, also had a wife named Rebekah, who is described as beautiful in the Bible.
Abraham commanded his servant to go and find a wife for his son Isaac. The servant set out on a journey to Abraham's homeland to search for a suitable woman for Isaac. The servant, having made a solemn promise to his master Abraham, brought camels with him and arrived at a town called Nahor. There, he rested the camels and tied them up by a well, intending to give them water. The servant prayed to God, saying, "I am now by the spring of water. Let the woman who gives me water to drink from among those coming to draw water be the one who will become Isaac's wife." At that moment, a beautiful woman appeared. When the servant asked her, "Please let me drink some water," she immediately gave him water. She also impressed the servant by drawing water multiple times from the well to give to the camels as well.
The servant was quickly taken by Rebekah and asked her to become Isaac's wife. Rebekah immediately went to report to her family, and when her father asked her, "Will you go with this man to Isaac?" she promptly replied, "Yes, I will go." Rebekah was a relative of Abraham.
Rebekah had a brother named Laban. Laban had two daughters named Leah and Rachel.
Rebekah's two sons, Esau and Jacob, became hostile toward each other. Rebekah sided with Jacob, helping him to steal Esau's blessing, which angered Esau. As a result, Jacob had to flee to Rebekah's homeland, to her brother Laban. Initially, Jacob planned to stay with Laban for a while to let things cool down. While staying there, he met Rachel. Rachel is described as beautiful in both form and appearance. Jacob fell in love with Rachel and asked her father Laban for her hand in marriage, offering to work for Laban without pay for 7 years.
However, Laban deceived Jacob by giving him Leah, the elder sister, in marriage instead. Jacob had to wait another 7 years before he could marry Rachel. Finally, Jacob and Rachel were united, but Rachel struggled to have children. After a long wait, she gave birth to her first son, Joseph, who would eventually lead Jacob's family to Egypt and save their lives.
King David had several wives, and one of them was Abigail. Although she was already another man's wife, David was impressed by her wisdom and took her as his wife.
While David was still fleeing from Saul, he passed through the wilderness. In that wilderness, there was a man named Nabal who kept sheep. David's men approached Nabal and said, "We wish to pass through this land. Could you share some food with us?" After all, David has always protected this land from evildoers. However, Nabal replied, "Who is David? I have no intention of giving food to someone I don't know," and sent David's men away. Angered, David prepared to attack Nabal. But at that moment, Nabal's wife, Abigail, acted with quick thinking. She said to David, "Your men have treated us well, and those who keep sheep in this area have been able to live in peace. Please do not be angry." She then secretly prepared a feast for David, without Nabal's knowledge. Later, Nabal was struck by the Lord and died. So David took Abigail as his wife.
Abigail became David's second wife. David's first wife was named Ahinoam, but the Bible does not mention anything about her appearance.
Bathsheba also had a husband, who was one of David's retainers. David, who took the wife of a highly capable subordinate, was likely drawn in by her beauty.
While Israel was at war with the Ammonites, David remained in Jerusalem and slept until the evening. As he walked on the roof of the palace in the evening, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was so beautiful that David sent someone to inquire about her. And he discovered that she was Bathsheba, the wife of one of his subordinates. Nonetheless, David summoned her to the palace and spent the night with her. After learning that Bathsheba had become pregnant, David called her husband, Uriah, back from the battlefield and tried to get him to go home and sleep with his wife. However, Uriah, being a dedicated soldier, refused to go home, while his comrades were still fighting, so he stayed away from his house. Determined, David wrote a letter to his general, Joab, instructing him to ensure that Uriah would die in battle. Joab followed the orders, and Uriah was killed. After the mourning period for her husband ended, David brought Bathsheba into his household, and she became his wife.
Because of this act, David and Bathsheba's first child died. However, their next son, Solomon, became David's successor and would go on to build the temple in David's place. Bathsheba became the mother of the king and eventually the queen mother.
David had a son named Absalom, who was a very handsome man. According to the Bible, there was no one in Israel as beautiful as him. He had a younger sister born to the same mother named Tamar. The Bible also states that she was very beautiful.
Absalom, the most handsome of David's sons, had a beautiful younger sister, Tamar. David's eldest son, Amnon, was in love with his half-sister Tamar. Amnon devised a plan and feigned illness to get Tamar to visit him. He asked her to cook for him and feed him. When she did as he asked and they were alone in Amnon's room, Amnon assaulted and humiliated Tamar. Upon learning of this, her brother Absalom was enraged and plotted to kill Amnon. At the sheep shearing festival when David's sons gathered, Absalom killed Amnon, avenging Tamar.
Tamar was probably younger than we imagine. I think Amnon fell in love with her when she was in her most beautiful teenage years. Maacah, the woman who gave birth to both the beautiful Tamar and Absalom, was probably beautiful as well.
Esther lost both of her parents at a young age, but her uncle Mordecai raised her with a strong education and a deep reverence for God.
During the reign of King Ahasuerus, the king held a banquet. In the midst of the festivities, the king wanted to show off his queen to the guests, so he summoned her. However, Queen Vashti refused the king's command. Humiliated, the king deposed Vashti from her position as queen and expelled her from the palace. With the queen's position now vacant, the king needed to find a replacement. His attendants gathered beautiful women from all over Persia, and among them was the Jewish woman, Esther. However, there were so many beautiful women in the palace that it took months for them to have their turn to meet the king. Even so, Esther won the favor of the overseer of the women and received special treatment. The women had a 12-month preparation period before they could meet the king one by one. After many months, it was finally Esther's turn. If the king did not like a woman after meeting her, she would never be summoned again. However, Esther was called back and became a woman the king loved. Eventually, Esther was the only one remaining, and she was given the queen's crown, becoming the queen of Persia.
Needless to say, Esther must have been exceptionally beautiful. She was chosen from among many women throughout Persia to become queen, a position reserved only for the most beautiful. Likewise, Sarah was called to the Egyptian king's court because of her beauty, despite her age. It's difficult to determine who was the most beautiful among these women, as they lived in different generations. However, the Bible tells us that beautiful women had the power to captivate men's hearts and shape history. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to the channel.